Tori Hansen, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, I'm really excited to have you on, more so specifically to talk about the US college system. So I want to pull back the curtain as such, learn more around what it's like being a four-year student athlete at one of the best schools in the nation, certainly from a sporting perspective as well. But before we get into that, I always start with how we make a connection with the guests. So we've just come off your first season with Melbourne Victory, and whilst we didn't get the chocolates at the end of the year that we were hoping for, how did you find your first year as a professional athlete?
It was amazing. I really enjoyed the team, the coaching. This was my first season overseas, and it was definitely a transition, but I loved it. And hopefully next year we can win that championship.
Yeah, so hopefully we can re-sign you and work through the agents and the salary that you're commanding for that. But I'm sure we'll get you back in a few months. So we'll speak a little bit around Melbourne Victory a little bit later in the conversation. But yeah, today's about a deep dive into the US college system. So let's speak about the University of North Carolina, Michael Jordan's alma mater. I went to college in North Carolina, where people asked, where I went. I said, college in North Carolina. And everybody's immediate reaction is you went to UNC. So that's kind of the gravitas of the school. So for those unaware of kind of the history of UNC at Chapel Hill, from a women's soccer perspective, 21 NCAA tournament championships, more than anybody else by a long way. The head coach there, Anson, Dorrance, is referred to as the GOAT, I guess, of soccer in America. So yeah, before we kind of dig into more around you and your story, yeah, what's it like to go to that particular school, that kind of history and kind of pressure that comes along with playing and attending a school of that stature?
Obviously, it's amazing. Growing up, around UNC, it was cool to see the amazing things that they would do. But having Anson there, he's obviously incredible, and you can learn so much from him. And just the history with every sport there, and the academics was so great. And I think that going there was definitely one of the best decisions that I've ever made.
So we'll get into how you arrived there shortly, but let me just read your bio just to give people some
Okay.
context. So 65 appearances over 4 years, 9 goals, not bad as a central defender. 2 times College Cup championship, so that's NCAA championship tournament runners-up, 2019 and 2022. So two very, very close title-winning teams there. College soccer, All-American first team, NCAA best 11, All ACC first team, NCAA All Tournament team, ACC All Tournament team, United Soccer Coaches All American second team, and UNC Player of the Year. So incredibly storied career and tenure with the soccer program. Let's start about why UNC, maybe how UNC to start with. Take us back to you're in high school now in the States. What does that process look like for a prospective student athlete? We've had student athletes on the show in the past, but coming from New Zealand and Australia, so it'll be a little bit different being an American home player. But what does it look like for a local-based American high school athlete looking to go into college?
So the recruiting process has changed a bit since I was being recruited. I started my recruiting process in 8th grade, so year 8 here. But I think now it's junior year you can be recruited. But yeah, it started so early, and I just would go to ID camps, and which are camps you just play at, and the coaches will watch you and see if they like you. And so I would go to a bunch of those, and then showcases around ECNL and the academy teams. The coaches would all come to those games, but my club coach at the time just became the assistant coach at UNC. So I actually had a great relationship going straight to UNC with him. So he knew how I played, he knew how I was as a person, and then they were able to recruit me, honestly, quite easily to get there. But yeah, it's a big process, but it's fun to go see all the schools and UNC wasn't even my number one school at the time. I wanted to go far from home, but I obviously fell in love once I went on my tour, and yeah, didn't look back.
So you spoke about ID camps, school visits. So how many, what's the regulation? So talk us through some of the detail now around, how many you can visit. Are there restrictions around that? What's the value of a visit to the campus? How long do you spend there? What are the sort of some of the questions prospective student athletes should be trying to ask and find out about the sporting program, be it soccer or swimming or whatever, and the staff? How does that look and feel from a prospective athlete?
So the visits are you can visit as many schools as you want, honestly. But they're really cool because you spend almost an entire day or weekend at each school, and they show you around the school. They'll show you what a day in the life really looks like. I'll show you facilities, you talk with the coaches, meet the players. You really get a good feel for the school itself. And I think that helps your decision a lot. And I think it's so important to go visit the school because everything can look great on paper, but then you get this feel at the school that you either like or don't like. So I think it's definitely really important to go on those visits.
Are you able to participate in team training?
No, you cannot participate in team training, but you can, the ID camps, a lot of the schools will have those, and you can go to those and you train with other recruits. And yeah, so a lot of coaches use that to recruit.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago when I was there, I got buddied up with a potential recruit, someone that we wanted to sign going into my senior year. And so I had to kind of chaperone him for the weekend. And all the recruits that were in for that particular weekend had a scrimmage, right? A 4v4 or a 5v5. And we all went down, and I obviously made a decent enough impression on this particular recruit because he signed for us the following year, which was great. So he worked out well for us. So there's certainly that relationship between current players, bring this person along, and went to a college party that night, and he obviously had a good time. So that was fun. So okay, you get recruited, or you search out certain schools, you go and visit them if you possibly can. Other guests have spoken about the value of that. Then you make a decision. UNC in your case is the school I'm going to go to. What's next? Is there still like signing a letter of intent? I'm committing by a certain date. Just talk us around what that looks like.
So yes. So for me, you verbally committed when I would do it, but I think now you can fully commit. But the day you can sign your letter of intent, it's like a big deal in high school. It's called signing day, and you get all your family and friends together and you sign your piece of paper. But that's usually the spring going into your freshman year, or your first year of college. So your senior year of high school, you'll sign that letter of intent, and that basically says that you're going to the college you signed for.
School as well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so now I've signed my intent. I know I've got a short window of time, matter of months before I head into normally pre-season. Well, again, it depends on the sport, right? Fall sports, so sports start in sort of August, September time. I'm thinking about soccer. I'm thinking about American football. I'm thinking about who else is in that pool? Lacrosse.
Lacrosse, men's, women's lacrosse. No, not lacrosse. Lacrosse is spring. Field hockey, football, soccer.
Softball?
No, softball is spring as well. Baseball spring. I think that might be it.
Basketball?
Basketball's winter.
Okay, so I guess the point of what we've just learned here is go and research your particular school sports start. So college or university in America will, classes start, late August, early September. That would be the fall season. So some sports will start there, some will start later in the year, but school tends to start around that time. So as a fall sport, so soccer in our case. You know, we would go before class arrives for the year and generally have our preseason. So there's a couple of weeks, or for my situation was 10 days before the rest of campus started arriving for the new year. So prior to that arrival for preseason, now what's some of your advice around how to best prepare yourself, not just physically for a preseason of your sport, but before you go into college for the first time? What are some things that you can provide us with that, you know, would be a good little, you know, run sheet to get prepared for arriving on campus?
So at UNC, we actually would do summer school. So I graduated high school, and like a week later I was in college because they like us to graduate early. So we have to go to summer school. But I think summer school is a great, all the girls are there and we're all training together, running together, lifting together. So I think it's a great way to get the team all together for those 3 months. So it's almost like an extra preseason, even though the coaches can't be around. It was a great way to get the team together. And I think a lot of schools do that now, and have players come in early.
So I can't think of anything worse than going to school over summer break, but it's a proper thing in America, right? So what does that look like? Is it, you know, school 9 to 3? Is it, you know, random classes, a bit like university, you know, a couple this day, a full day the next day, off the next day? What, you know, how similar to full-time university would summer school look?
So we would usually take either 1 or 2 classes, and that would be about 2-3 hours a day. So you're honestly not going to school for quite as long. So I would say a regular day for summer school for me was we would wake up, go do strength and conditioning, whether that's lifting or running, whatever we were doing that day, and then go to class, eat lunch, and then maybe train or play pickup or whatever, and then dinner, and then you just do it over and over again. But yeah, it's nice because you're not in a full term, so you're only taking 1 or 2 classes rather than 4 or 5.
Are you living on campus at this point?
Yes, in the dorms.
Is it part of, say, the scholarship or the cost of going to you know, your 4-year degree? Is it wrapped up in that, or is it an additional cost?
Um, it is definitely included in the scholarship.
All right. So yeah, it's again something to think about, asking these questions of your head coach, the program, the school. You know, is there an expectation around summer school? Like if you said, I'm going to New Zealand or Australia for 6 weeks for a getaway before I start college, how would have that played out in terms of your situation? Would it have been, no, this is non-negotiable? Is it no problems?
Oh,
Have a longer period of, at school in the regular
yeah,
university?
it's no problems. There's obviously preseason, you have to be there by, I want to say it was like August 1st is when we would get there. But if people had things going on over the summer, you were never required to do summer school, but it was highly recommended to be there, and get a few classes under your belt, because it was a really good transition from high school into college, because you were only taking 1 class. So you could easily get into everything.
So now you get yourself into the full season. Everybody's on campus. Excuse me. And you're well into your season now. Preseason's happened. You're starting your season. Just paint the picture for me now around, you know, roster size. You know, what's some regulations that you can recall around how often we can train in season, how many games. You know, what a normal week might look like from a student athlete perspective.
It can definitely feel a little overwhelming at first coming from high school. But yeah, we would play games Thursday, Sunday, which now seems like crazy to have 2 games in a week. But yeah, Thursday, Sunday, and you're in classes the entire week, and sometimes you'll have to miss class for travel, which can be hard, but most of the professors were very understanding and helpful with that. Travel sizes. I mean, obviously going into college, everyone was one of the best players at their high school. So the competition has obviously increased, and you're playing with better players. So it's going to be harder to make the starting 11. It's going to be harder to make travel rosters. So yeah, it's definitely a step up, but I think it's they try to make it an easy transition as possible.
How many on the squad?
Like the travel squad or
Oh,
my team's
maybe both.
roster.
Give us the full roster, and then what
We
the roster would look like.
full roster, we had a lot. Say like 35, 30. We had a lot of people on our roster. Over the years, I can't remember. Sometimes it was high, sometimes it was low, but and then travel roster, I believe was 22. And then that would go down with tournaments, like tournament time, I believe it was 20. And then it would just keep going down.
All right, let's talk about this. So 35 on the full roster. So what does that provide the coaching staff in terms of the training week? Is that enough to be playing like 11-11 type tactical preparation? Are all 35 of those on scholarships? How would that look?
I can't remember how many. I want to say we have like 14 scholarships to split between everyone. Wait, 14 might be a lot. I can't remember. But yeah, it's awesome to have that many players because you can do anything as a coach. But it's also a lot of players to manage and a lot of players to keep happy. So it was definitely a tough. When we had 35, it was tough to keep people happy because you have a full starting 11, a second starting 11, and then basically a third 11 that aren't even playing in the tactical days, which is hard. So it's definitely tough to have a big roster like that. Yes.
Challenges. So again, good questions that I'm thinking of is, asking each school what their roster size is. So
Exactly.
it was probably closer to 25, and that included 4 goalkeepers.
Okay.
35 is a lot, right? So,
yeah.
If you're player 33, potentially or a third string right back, you're probably not going to play. Potentially not going to train in the team environment. So something to be considered there as well. So let's say you're in the travel roster of 22. I'm the second string right back. You're in front of me. How likely would I play in that game?
So college subbing rules are obviously much different than here. You can sub in the first half and come back out, or not come back out, but you can come out in the first half and then go back in the second half. So UNC liked to sub a lot. So we would do, our starters would play 30 minutes and then reserves would come in and play 15. Not a full 11 switch, but it was roughly 7 players would switch out. And then in the second half, the starters would play 15, reserves would play 15, starters would go back in for the last 15. So there was a constant rotation. And I think that definitely allowed us to have a bigger roster squad because of how much subbing we did. But again, every school is different. Some may not use their subs quite as much as UNC did.
What's the value of that kind of, I guess, that regulation in the matches? Are you allowed, not infinite rolling subs, but there's some restrictions around that. But I'm assuming the purpose behind that is you can go super hard for 25 minutes and then come off and get a rest and then go back in and come back out. How did it feel as an athlete, having that continuity broken reasonably regularly? How did you find it for the development of your game?
Yeah, because I went from not playing to a reserve to starting to playing 90 minutes. So I think it definitely helps those second string players when you're not fully in the squad. You know that you will at least get some minutes. And I think that helps, obviously, your career, getting those minutes, even though it might not be as many minutes as you want. But yeah, also the way we play, you're probably pretty tired by the 30th minute if you're starting. So you're ready to come off and refresh and get back on the field after that.
I mentioned in the earlier part, the coach Anson Dorrance, potentially Sir Anson Dorrance
Mhm.
at some point. So, you know, very famous, well-known coach, coached the US women's national team to the very first World Cup in China. Has been at UNC for many, many years and been super successful. Talk to me about him as a coach, him as a person. You know, lift back the curtain on him, because he's a future guest on the podcast. I'm excited to speak to him in a month's time. But yeah, let me know what we're going to get ourselves into there.
Yes, he is. He's a man of character, and he has a philosophy that he has stuck to since whenever you said whatever date that was, a long time ago. But yeah, he lives by his philosophy, and it works. Like, it is proven to produce players at the professional level, at the international level, and even at the college level. He gets the best players there, and yeah, I definitely really enjoyed playing for him. He's very interactive with his players, and he likes to have their input, and he likes to create. One thing he would always say is, I want to create an environment that I want to play in. And I think that it was a great thing to hear as a player, because he's obviously trying to make you as comfortable and keep the environment as I guess playable as possible.
One of the things he's very well known for, and anybody who's read any books or done any research on Anson, is the competitive cauldron, as he refers to it. So in your summation, talk us about what the competitive cauldron is.
So the competitive cauldron is basically every drill you ever do in practice, and you basically get a ranking. It honestly, it wouldn't matter what we were doing, if it's small sided, 11v11, passing pattern, like everything was being scored. We have team managers who would sit there with clipboards and write things down. And yeah, so this was basically a rank of how you're doing in training, and you're constantly competing against your teammates and the people next to you. So they would post it. They'd post this list of how you're doing in training on the bulletin board, so you would see it every day in training. Every day you'd go to practice, and you'd see, okay, well, I need to be better in this, or okay, I'm doing great in this. I need to keep being consistent in this area. And I think it definitely helped a lot of players, because sometimes you shy away from your weaknesses. And I think that the competitive cauldron, it'll point out whatever you need to work on. It will show you, okay, this area you need to work on in your game. And yeah, I think he's used that for so long, and it's proven to work.
How much of an impact would that have on selection and playing time?
He would use it as it would have an impact, but usually the players at the top of the competitive cauldron were the people starting. Like, he's analyzed it and to make it where the better players will obviously succeed, because it's how you're doing in training, and usually the better players will stand out.
Was performances in matches kind of fed into the whole data system, or was it literally training only?
Yep, match performance. It was more GPS data for matches. I'm trying to think if there was anything else, but I think, yeah, he was really big on GPS data. But yeah, I feel like for matches, it's mainly just GPS data.
What I really like about it is trying to provide a little bit of objective measurements to support the subjective, what I see and feel. So if I can provide some data points, some measurements around outcomes, that kind of helps go, well, Tori, you're trending down based on these performance metrics, and here's some proof to show that, as opposed to, I just think Tori's in a bit of a low motivation, low quality. So it's kind of being able to provide both. How did it feel as a player to see your data pinned up to the wall in a heading exercise, or a 2v2, or a shooting, or whatever it is? Did that provide you more motivation? Speak on behalf of your teammates as well. I'm assuming not everybody's going to be the same. Is it an idea that coaches listening to this can kind of take and apply in their own environment with success? Is it something that you would encourage potentially?
Yeah, I would definitely encourage it because it creates a competitive environment, and it creates, Anson likes to talk about this never ending ascension, and it helps you want to improve every day. If you're seeing your name on there and say you're at the bottom of a heading drill, then obviously you need to work on that, and it shows you that you need to work on that. But yeah, I started at the bottom and then slowly worked my way to the top by the end of my career at UNC. And it's not fun. It's not fun to see your name at the bottom, and you want to be at the top. So I think that it definitely motivates you to improve on those things, and honestly improve on everything, just to become not only a better player but get higher on the cauldron.
Nice. Started from the bottom, now I'm here. That's what
Started from the bottom. Yes.
bad dad joke.
Yeah.
So we don't want to link that back to the playing time and the rosters and
Mhm.
the first string, second string. So how much an impact would competitive cauldron, if I'm a non-starter, I can only imagine if I'm starting to show, improvements and performance
Yeah.
higher than some other players in my position, surely that's going to have an impact
Mhm.
around, I'm going to move up the ranking, I'm going to get more opportunities, more playing
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, it definitely would. And he would notice that, but obviously sometimes the thing about the competitive culture that would get tough is when injuries would occur, then players would not be in the competitive cauldron as much, so maybe they would bump down and it'd be a little bit inaccurate, and maybe some players would bump up. But I feel like for the most part, it was pretty, like, the trend was pretty consistent for them.
One of the values that, a program like UNC can provide is, hundreds of interns wanting to be part of
Yes.
something that are support and volunteer their time. So challenges
Mhm,
for us as coaches in our context, we work in a professional environment, and yeah, there's some good
mhm,
bodies around, but it's not always that easy. So, when I first came across the competitive cauldron, I tried to implement an element of it back
mhm,
in New Zealand at New Zealand Football, and we would uh, categorize players in like forwards, midfielders, defenders, and they had their own little internal ranking based on their unit. And we didn't measure everything because it was impossible, but every
mhm,
session there was like one of the components would say, right, we're measuring this. So measuring pass completion rate, or wins in a small sided game, or
mhm,
shooting accuracy, whatever it's going to be. And that little element, or this whole day in this week. So there was at least one part of the day or one part of the week where we were measuring.
mhm,
But we also added in some non-football related things. So communication, am I
mhm,
have I communicated whatever in a timely manner? What's my attitude like today? Am I
mhm,
early? Have I done the small things? Have I contributed to, say, packing down? Like little things like that we all gave a bit of a measure to, and they were all
mhm,
worth 1 point or minus a point, for example. So simple enough for us as a smaller staff to measure. We've got injured players to help accumulate these data points. And at the end of the
mhm.
week, whoever in your unit was at the bottom was not selected for the squad for that particular match. Now there were some caveats around that. If we had as a forward, if we had 3 injuries, we've only got 3 forwards to pick from. Well, I could
Mhm,
finish third, therefore bottom, but I still needed to
mhm.
play. So it wasn't a
Yep.
hard and fast rule, but I really liked it because it gave a little bit of ownership around players doing what we've asked of them to a really high,
Mhm,
consistent standard. They knew that we were measuring something, so it made the intensity of that particular element ramp up to
mhm.
create this innate competitive nature within players. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot to think about, and things to kind of go away and think, how can I apply
Mhm.
this into our environment?
Yeah, definitely.
If we go back to now the the student part of the student athlete, so you spoke about
Yeah.
going to class, especially in season. I might have to travel. Are
Mhm.
there regulations around attendance requirements for class to be eligible to play, or how does that work out?
So most classes will have an attendance policy. I think you can miss maybe 2 or 3 classes unexcused. Athletics was always excused, and most schools are very work work very well with their athletes and with travel and like getting your work before you leave so you're caught up. Um, but yeah, our professors, they did a really great job with helping people out, whether it's like recording a lecture and then posting it so we could watch it. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're there for school to learn and to get your degree. But most professors are super helpful with um, traveling.
Are there other mechanisms to help, the student athletes kind of catch up on, study, whether it be study halls or
Hmm.
anything else like that?
Yes. So freshman year, you are required to go to study hall for a certain amount of hours each week, and that definitely helps you build that foundation of how you're going to study for the next few years. We also, everyone has an academic advisor who helps you get into things if you're struggling, or like if you need a tutor. We have tutors available for every single subject, and you can go for free. They're all included with the athletic department. Um, and yeah, there's so many resources to help you if you need that on the school side.
So I'm going there. It's a 4-year degree for the most part. A lot of kids don't quite know what they want to do. They want to be there to play
Hmm.
football, soccer, in our situation, and study is kind of the second part of that. Whereas it's
Hmm.
deliberately student athlete rather than athlete student, right? So the student piece is huge, and it can't be understated at all. How
Hmm.
did you know what you wanted to be at the end of your 4-year career? What is the general day in the life of a freshman, the first year of the 4 going into it, and where does the minor major conversation come in? Like maybe just explain what that study kind of thing feels like.
So I had no idea what I wanted to do when I first got there. At first I was a business major, and then I didn't like it, so then I changed to sports administration, and then that was the major I ended up choosing. But yeah, freshman year it's nice because you can try classes out and see what interests you and which classes you like. You don't have to decide what your major is until I think halfway through your second year of college. So you have so much time to try classes out to see which major you want to be in. Um, and obviously, minors takes less classes to complete a minor, and it takes more classes to complete a major. But it definitely benefits to have a minor with your major. And yeah.
So when you say try classes out, so let's
Hmm.
say I wanted to be something in physical education, all right? So
Hmm.
if am I trying classes out in that kind of that sphere of physical education, or am I trying, random things like maths and science, or do I have to do that as well as physical classes?
Yes, there is a general part of the education that you have to do where it's math and English. There's certain subjects you have to take before you can even, not before, but you have to get credits for them in order to graduate. Um, wait, what was your question again?
Yeah, so no,
Sorry.
I was leading you to speaking about general education. So in a normal 4-year degree, am I correct in thinking 50% of that 4 years or credits worth is in your majors subject, and if the other 50% are in general education, is it a 50-50 split?
Um, I want to say it might be like 60-40.
Yeah.
There's definitely more major classes, but there's general education and they call them electives. You have to get like some electives in your that's part of your degree. That Yeah, that part was always confusing. But yeah,
Electives being
it's
requirements, right? Compulsory percentage.
mhm,
Yeah. So
yes.
quite often what student athletes will do is they'll start freshman year, they'll focus on, their sport and being away from home and being a college student,
Mhm,
and just pick up these general education papers, because at some
mhm,
point in your 4 years you're going to need to do them. You can do them at the beginning of your degree, you can do them at the very end of your degree. It's irrelevant, right? So picking and choosing classes like, I don't know, poetry or public speaking or statistics 101, all of these will add up towards the general ed, where each school might be a bit different, where you need to have 15 credits in a math, 15 credits in a science, 15 in a history. Is that accurate?
Yes. And the credits is where everything really comes in.
Can you remember some of the general ed papers or courses that you did?
Let me think. General ed. Obviously the English and the math. Let me think. We had to take a lifetime fitness class as part of our general education. So I took a yoga class, which was very cool. A sociology class. Like there are some very entertaining classes that that would help benefit you with your degree and that are super interesting. There's so many. I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking on all of them, but
you do a language?
there's so many. I did Spanish, yes, and I loved it. But yeah, there's so many amazing classes that are available, and that would be really cool to take.
Yeah.
You just have to find the right ones.
And there's some classes that like double dip, right? So I remember world music gave me 3 credits in history as well as 3 credits in the arts. So they to do one course, it would get like 6, like it'd be kind of like doing 2 for 1. And there was always like this wait list to sign up for world music. But crazy to think that, world music, but I'm doing physical education teaching degree type thing. But this is just some of the nuances of the US college system, and again, asking these questions, finding out what your general education papers are. So I didn't have the luxury of a sociology, for example. I'd love to have done that, but I had 4 semesters worth of a language. So the languages offered at my school was Spanish, German, and Latin. Believe it or not, what were the options at UNC?
There's Spanish. They had a Chinese class, Italian, German. I think there might be more, but that's all I can remember.
Yeah. So
it's super cool.
Each school will be different. So again, part of your research before you sign your letter of intent is what are these things? What are these options available to me in my if I choose this school? And being really clear on that without needing to know exactly what I'm going to study when I walk in, which is different here in Australia and New Zealand, where I'm going on this 4-year degree, and literally 90% of the papers are linked to that major as such. What about the off season? You're still a student athlete. The athlete part doesn't disappear. There's still training. There's still potentially some games. So if you're talking about a fall season being the in season and the spring being the off, the other half of the year, what does that look like from a student athlete perspective?
So spring season is a lot different than fall. Obviously, we can only play 5 games in the spring. So you definitely have a lot more time for training and trying to work on those things that you couldn't work on in season, whether that's gym, some endurance, speed. There's definitely more things that you can work on in the off season, because the fall you're playing 2 games a week. So it's very hard to incorporate, I guess, those training sessions. You definitely have more, your fitness stuff is like more ramped up, so it's definitely harder.
How many games would you play in that kind of off period?
You're allowed 5 games in that off time, which obviously game day is the best, and you go from playing 20 games in a season to 5, so it kind of stinks that you're not playing as much. But you definitely get to work on things that you need to work on, which is really important. And just trying to improve. That spring season is to honestly get better. So
what about something we probably didn't talk about was like the living situation? So is there restrictions around everybody must live on campus. Does that change as you move through the years?
So at UNC, you're required to live on campus freshman year, and living on campus is the best because you're so close to all your friends. You meet so many new people. You have the availability to go to the dining hall and have all your food cooked for you. But then the last 3 years, you're able to live off campus, which most people do live off campus, and you just find your own housing and live with whoever you want. But yeah, on campus is I loved living on campus freshman year.
How many years were you in the dorms? Just freshman year?
So COVID hit my freshman year, so you're supposed to be there for a whole year, but we got kicked out in March. And then yeah, then I don't think anyone could live in the dorms sophomore year because of COVID. But yes, you're supposed to live there for a year.
So if we sort of fast forward a little bit, you've mastered the art of student athlete. You've graduated now with your degree. You've become, we spoke about the bio at the beginning, a very decorated UNC player without quite winning a championship, which must have been one of the things that you dreamt of.
Horrible.
Yeah. So playing in two College Cup finals, I don't know how much you want to share about the heartbreaks, but what was playing in a College Cup tournament like? Obviously different to the regular season, but talk about tournament style football in the States.
Tournament it's the best time of the year. It really is. It's so fun there's so much pressure on one game, and it's just fun to like step up to the plate and own that game. Playing in the national championship was obviously amazing. We were playing in North Carolina. We had all of our fans there. It was incredible. But yeah, losing was not fun. But it's cool because you get all the hype of your entire university around you, and all your friends and classmates, professors, everyone is asking, how's the tournament going? How are you guys doing? Who do you play next? We're rooting for you. Like, it's just this camaraderie with the school that's so amazing and so cool to be a part of.
Speak about the hype. One of my fonder memories of college life was the hype around homecoming and how everybody gets wrapped around that. For those who don't know what homecoming is, or homecoming weekend, maybe just give me a bit of an outline to that.
Like alumni weekend, like when everyone comes back.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's an amazing weekend. You get to come back and see all your friends and all your teammates, and we would have these incredible people coming to our homecoming weekend. We've got Mia Hamm, Christine Lilly, and we're in shock, and it's just like another day for them coming back to Carolina to see us play. But yeah, the homecoming weekend is awesome because there's so many incredible people that come back, and yeah, it's a great weekend.
So once a year, the athletics department or the AD will schedule all the fall sports to play at home over a particular weekend, and it's homecoming weekend, right? So all those ex-players get the opportunity to come back and support their old team, and it's just a big party vibe for the weekend. I've been back to one homecoming to my alma mater 10, 11 years ago now. I must be due to go back, and it's a great time to go back 10 years on and reconnect with teammates and people you spent, in my case 2 years, but your case 4 years. And I guess there's a lot of hype around supporting your fellow classmates who play other sports. So at my school, American football was the big sport, and we'd go and sit in the bleachers and have the big fingers and wave them around and hear all the marching bands, and it's a big deal. Like, what other how much did you support other athletes, and how much did they support you?
The athletic community at Carolina was amazing. Everyone would come to our games. We would go to everyone's games. We were a very close group, and I think it's cool to support they're your friends, but they're also playing in these games, and you're supporting them as players and as humans. And I think it's just such a great community. And I think at most college schools, I'd say you're going to as many athletic games as you can. Like who's playing at home this week, and then you try and get all your friends together and go to the games and just support your fellow classmates.
So you're finishing your career now, your student athlete career, you got your degree, done your 4 years of 4 seasons, and you must decide, I'm not done with football yet. I want to try it as a pro. So
Mm-hmm.
how does that work? How do you declare yourself eligible for the NWSL draft, or do you have an agent at this point? Are you wanting to go overseas? How does that work? Graduating out of college to try and go down the professional road.
So after I graduated, I didn't know where. I knew I wanted to keep playing soccer, but I didn't know if I wanted to go NWSL or overseas. So I just entered into the NWSL draft, and it's pretty quick turnaround because I graduated in December and then the draft was in January. So I entered my name and was just hoping to get picked up. There wasn't much communication beforehand. Like nobody was like, Orlando was like, "Hey, Tori, we're gonna draft you." I was just sitting at the draft, and then my name got called, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to Orlando! Amazing!" But yeah, that was a really, really great experience to have with my family and friends. And
I had no idea that it was that kind of boom, I'm in and I'm not in, and no pre-communication around, are you interested in coming, so now you get drafted by Orlando. So
mm-hmm.
at least it's still on the East Coast. So what does it mean now? Like, are there uncertainty around, I hear about, getting traded before you even arrive. So is there an uncertainty of actually, am I going to go to Orlando, or no, you need to report for a preseason camp on this date, and then you've got a month, you've got a guaranteed contract. How does all that work out?
So the draft, there's nothing's guaranteed. It's basically, hey, we like you, come to our preseason is what that is. So then you have to go to the preseason. You have no contract. You're basically trying out for the team for, I think preseason was maybe a month and a half, but you're there and they have your rights until they waive you. But I was fortunate enough to sign a contract with Orlando and then spend most of the season with them before coming here.
So you play a few games, play in the cup competition. You then, I assume, have a conversation with the head coach or the GM around, we might see not on the starting roster, or you kind of, fringe player. You need to be playing games to continue to develop. So you end up striking up a loan deal with Melbourne Victory, and you come here and you play out a season, you accumulate some time to develop. How did that play out? How did the loan negotiations work? Did you actively seek a kind of a loan deal or release to be playing? Did you want to stay and you were kind of forced out because Orlando hold your rights? It kind of sounds a bit dictatorship.
So yeah. So I was just gonna continue my season there at Orlando, but then my agent reached out and was like, "Hey, what do you think about loan? Like, do you want me to see if your GM would be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, definitely. Let's see what they think." And she was like, "Yeah, we're definitely interested. See if you can find a team." And then obviously found Victory, and it worked out so well, and it all happened quite fast because you guys were starting your season, and then I don't know if the window is closing or something, but it had to be done quite quickly. So I signed my contract, and I was probably over here within the next week or two. But yeah, it worked out very well, and I'm so glad that I did it. And I've really enjoyed playing over here and getting some good minutes in.
How much of a say did you have as the athlete in terms of ending up in Australia versus ending up in, I don't know, Mexico or Norway? Like, let's say there were 3 offers on the table from those 3 countries. You get to pick, or does the GM go, actually, the league in Australia works better for us because of these windows, and we feel you might play more than Norway? How much of the influence do you as the athlete have in this conversation?
So my GM at Orlando is really great, and she's she's very, very helpful with the athletes, and she was totally fine if I just wanted to stay. If I couldn't find a team, but I was lucky enough to find a team. So yeah, the ball was pretty much in my court, in my agent's court, and we found a great team, obviously. And but yeah, she was super supportive of whatever decision I made, and she was really, really great about all of that.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. So you land here in Melbourne. You just had your first season.
Ooh.
What are your, I guess, your takeaways, your learnings, positive and negative, from I guess that transition from starting the year in Orlando and then quite quickly, find yourself in Melbourne, and
Mhm,
maybe not coming here as a starter straight away, but forcing your way into the
mhm.
team. And how would you sort of summarize the last 6 months?
Yeah, definitely a huge transition coming overseas from America, and this being my first season overseas, first time living overseas. Like, this was definitely a big jump. Um, but yeah, going from Orlando, where I wasn't really playing much, and then coming here and playing a lot, it definitely made me realize how important taking care of yourself is, and like the little things off the field as an athlete, like activation and recovery, what you're eating. It definitely takes a huge toll on the older you get, and the more you start to play, on your body. And yeah, I think it was obviously took some time to adjust, but overall I think it went really well.
Yeah, so that time to adjust would also would have been impacted by new culture, new country, new
Hmm.
time zone probably as well.
Hmm.
Was that easy for you? Was it one of your bigger challenges, and how did you work through that?
It was definitely one of my bigger challenges, I would say, but I had a really great support system at home and even here. So I was always able to talk to someone if I needed it, or um, yeah, I definitely had people supporting me from both at home and from here as well.
So let's talk about your support network. So who was that firstly for you?
Obviously, my family, my parents, my brother. Um, yeah, I really do have an incredible support system, and I couldn't be more grateful.
So I guess you went to a school 35 minutes down the road from home, so
Yeah,
you could see them a little bit more often than a lot of student athletes decide to go the other side of the country to get away from mum and dad. So let's
yeah.
go back to your time in college to start with. What sort of role did that support network play for you whilst you were, in at school?
Um, yeah, I definitely had quite a few ups and downs in college, so it definitely helped having my parents there to support me. And they both were athletes in growing up, so they knew what came with the pressure and everything. And they would just tell me that they support me in everything that I do. It didn't matter if I was playing 90 minutes, playing 0 minutes, they were at every single game. So I definitely felt very loved and supported. And I think that overall that helped me so much in my career, because I knew, regardless of what happened, that I had my family on my side, and that definitely benefited me a lot.
Yeah, so you're incredibly fortunate to have that so close, but
Yes.
not everybody will have that so
Hmm.
close. And I think about you now playing in Melbourne, your family's in North Carolina, so it's not
Hmm.
too dissimilar to going to the West Coast and playing in Oregon, and your family being on the East Coast. So,
Exactly.
what sort of
Hmm.
role do they play now, in terms of being the distance away? They can't be at all your
Hmm.
games, as well as you now being a little bit older. You're in a professional environment, but only it's the first taste of that next stage, that high performance stage. So you're still very
Hmm.
much finding your feet. How are they? Yeah, first two parts, that the distance, and then now as a performance athlete.
Yeah, the distance is hard, and it's definitely harder to use them as support when there's a time change, like something's going on. It might be harder for me to contact them, but they still will watch every single game, even if it's at 3 a.m. They're up watching, and just being there if I need them. But yeah, their support has really been amazing. And yeah.
Are there any other kind of key people in your network? You mentioned your brother. Like, what kind of
Mm-hmm.
role could siblings play that, obviously similar to parents, but different?
Mm-hmm.
Did you lean on him or other key people along this journey?
Yeah. He was just very good to have as like a positive outlet. He was always there, and I knew that he would just be like, oh, whatever's going on, it's all going to be okay. And I knew that I had his endless support regardless of what was going on. And I think I've had past coaches that have always reached out and just been always supportive and encouraging with whatever is going on. But yeah, past coaches have been extremely helpful to lean on. And if I ever needed anything or had questions, they were always there to help as well.
Are there any, I guess, final remarks or advice that you can share with, parents or siblings, athletes that are on here that are also a sibling of an athlete?
Mm-hmm.
Any sort of key final words to that support network listening in around, things that, really resonated for you, or maybe things that, maybe you kind of shied away from that you can share with us?
I think it's important to tell the athlete that you're supporting that you support them. Like, genuinely let them know, I support you with whatever you're doing. I think there's times where you can do things where you're like, they know I support them. I'm driving them, I'm coming to games, but I think sometimes that can get lost. But I think genuinely telling them, I'm here for you with whatever you need. I'm here to support. And yeah, and I think that helped me a lot. Both my parents were very affirmative with that, and I really appreciated it.
Yeah, nice. One of the other elements of a support network, which, kind of gets lumped into just as a coach, right? But as a coach or an assistant coach or the team manager, or quite often, the physio spends a lot of time with play.
Mm-hmm.
These can all play a part in support network. So think back to maybe just narrowing it to the coaches now. How was Anson as the head coach, or how was his staff maybe around that in terms of offering
Mm-hmm.
other layers of support?
Um, yeah, I think the connections you have with your coaches are so important, the relationships, like to be able to go to them with what you need or what's going on. Um, I definitely felt comfortable going to them, and they made an environment comfortable enough for players to be like, I'm not having a great day, like, just so you know. And then it was good to have that support from your coaches, knowing that you, I guess, have that support.
Yeah, so you highlighted the support element earlier in the conversation about Anson. So,
Mm-hmm.
you've had Anson Dorrance, probably well, I don't know him personally, so I don't want to
Yeah.
put words in anyone's mouth, but you've had a really
Mm-hmm.
experienced coach there. You've
Mm-hmm.
gone into professional ranks at Orlando Pride. You've come to Melbourne Victory, where you've got the most experienced A-League women's coach in Jeff Hopkins. So you've been across, and obviously prior to UNC, you've been around some pretty decent level people who are experienced as a
Mm-hmm.
coach. What are the
Yeah.
common traits, or maybe they're completely different, but what do you see as the really positive traits that you've experienced in these three environments that, as coaches listening to now, maybe they can reflect on, am I strong in this area? Is this something I should be focusing a little bit more on, as away from necessarily the technical, tactical
Mm-hmm.
on-field coaching piece?
I would say two things. Communication, the transparency is so important. And I think it's for a player to know where they stand in anything, whether it's good or bad. Like, it's just important for a player to know what is going on. And then I would say your relationship off the field. I think that how your relationship is off the field translate to how it is on the field, and how you can take in information. And it definitely helps to have a good relationship off the field, so that way when your coach does give you information, you know that it's not personal and you can take it as for what he's saying and not how it's being said or something like that.
Do you see that would be the same same advice for coaches working at high performance level as well as HPAD level, as we've referred to it, so the pre-high performance, or would it change based on the stage of development that an athlete's in?
I would say the relationship is still very, very important off the field. It might be harder at the younger levels because there's so many other outside factors going on and more parents are involved, and it's definitely harder at the youth ages. But communication is, I would say, is the same for both levels. Just being transparent. Like I think a 30-second conversation is quite easy to help a player understand why they aren't playing or why they are playing. And I think that it's just so important.
Just to sort of wrap this part up. So if we go back to athletes now, so we've spoken a lot around the US system, some of the ins and outs and some of the detail of some of the components. Any parting words or advice to prospective student athletes, or even if it's just athletes listening in who don't have an interest in the US system, but again want to follow a bit of your trajectory of being a really promising youth athlete now making their step into professional football? Any final words?
Well, I'll just say this. I thoroughly enjoyed my time and with the US system. But every journey is different, and I think it's important to know that there will always be different opportunities for everyone, but regardless of how you get to your success, it doesn't matter which journey you took. It's just the fact that you got there.
Nice. Some brilliant insights so far, and I'm really, really appreciative of your time. Just to close us off, we have our quick fire questions. So looking forward to seeing what other golden nuggets you can provide us here. So firstly, provide us one question for the week.
My question would be, if your role was reversed, say you're an athlete listening to this, think of yourself as a parent, or if you're a parent listening to this, think of yourself as an athlete. How would you want to be supported?
Great question. Love that. Provide us one concept or an idea that you've been thinking about lately.
One concept or idea that I would like to share is how important your relationships are on and off the field, regardless if it's with your teammates, the coaching staff, the medical staff. Like, it's so important to have those relationships going forward.
A book, movie, or a podcast that you would recommend is?
A book that I would recommend is The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett.
There you are. You're about the fifth person to speak about the diary of a CEO, so there must be some golden advice in there. I listen to
it's a good one
as well as a podcast, but his books just come out. All right, if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about your journey or the sports system, what would that be?
If I had a magic wand and could change one thing about my sport, I would want there to be more full-time professional opportunities on the women's side of the game.
Yeah. I'm going to ask it again, put you on the spot here, and go, if you could have a magic wand and wave it around and change one thing about being a student athlete in the States, what would that be?
If I could change one thing in the US, I would say to have a year-long season. So instead of playing games just in the fall, we would make it a year-long, so then we could play both.
Brilliant. I think
both seasons.
A lot of student athletes and coaches in the system would advocate for that as well.
Agreed.
What is the thing that I'm striving for right now?
I'm currently striving for a contract in the A-League, another one with Victory, and then hopefully winning a championship with them next year if everything works out well.
That'd be amazing. And
yes.
Close us off. Give us a quote for the week.
My quote for the week will have to be, I have this quote hanging in my bedroom at home. I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I can't accept not trying. And that is said by Michael Jordan.
Brilliant. UNC alum to close us off. Tori
Best
Hansen.
way to end it.
Tori Hansen, really appreciate your time. Really enjoyed having conversation and bringing back some of my own reflections of the US college system. It's a brilliant opportunity, but there are a lot of things for athletes and parents to be aware of before they go down that road. So appreciate you pulling back the curtain and letting us in on some of those things in a little bit more detail than we've spoken about in the past. So really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for sticking through to the end of this episode. It would mean the world to us if you could hit the like or share button so we can get these amazing insights out to other like-minded coaches, athletes, and parents. Cheers. This episode is brought to you by Platform Sports Management. If you are interested in the US college pathway, the team at Platform Sports are who you need to be connected with. They will guide you in every step of the process and maintain the connection to students even once they've settled in the US. They even have a no offer, no cost policy, so you have literally nothing to lose. Use the link in the show notes to start your free consultation today.